One of the biggest criticisms of the 2.8 litre automatic Landcruiser is its towing potential under heavy load and whether it has the same reliability of the much proven V8. If you look online, there are plenty of back-to-back short towing tests between the 4-cylinder and the V8 showing how capable the 4-cylinder is. However, none of them share the actual engine coolant and exhaust gas temperatures or discuss how the 4-cylinder is in a long real-life towing test. Therefore, we're kind of in the dark about the big question mark, the actual strain on the small engine with all of that weight behind it. Further to this, there are very few details online about the temperatures and the fuel economy of the Landcruiser when towing and once tuned, let alone the new 2.8 automatic. So in this video, I'm going to try to fill in these gaps and share with you the data that I have collected from my 2,000 kilometer round trip from Sydney to Queensland and back. I'm going to share my exact fuel consumption, the coolant temperatures, and the exhaust gas temperatures as recorded on the Scangauge 3 OBD gauge, as well as share my feedback on how it feels to drive a fully loaded 2.8 litre 4-cylinder Landcruiser automatic, towing near to its GCM maximum limit. What's up, I'm Eamon and welcome back to Bush Business. The reason for this massive interstate trip was to attend and display at the Brisbane 4x4 show. I was towing my custom trailer, fully loaded with IGL products using my 79 series Landcruiser that was also fully loaded with camping gear. This combination would have been sitting at approximately 7 tons, right near my GCM limit. The cruiser has a JustAutos engine and gearbox tune, which I have already reviewed previously, and link to that video is in the description below so you can watch it later. And for my monitoring, I was running the Scangauge 3 connected to the OBD port so I can make sure everything was running well and safe. I will be doing a dedicated video purely on the Scangauge 3 and how it works, also if it's worth buying in the future. But for today, we're using its data to focus entirely on the towing performance of the JustAutos engine and gearbox tune in the 2.8 litre automatic Landcruiser. Before we get to business, if you are new to the channel and you enjoy this kind of content, please do hit that subscribe and like button for me. And if you are a regular or a first timer, please also hit that like button for me as it helps support the channel. Also, to set the record straight, this is not a sponsored video. I paid full price for everything, including the tune, with my own money. And whilst I did meet the JustAutos boys at the 4x4 show who are absolute legends, this channel is 100% about objective facts and data with or without any sponsorship. So positive or negative, my thoughts and opinions are my own based on my personal experiences. Finally, the Scangauge 3 speed reading does bounce up and down by 3 kilometers an hour. So for those who have eagle eyes and are looking at my recorded maximum speed, please take that reading with a grain of salt. Now, if you have watched my previous videos, you know that I have tuned this Landcruiser specifically in preparation for towing my trailer. The goal wasn't to improve the performance, but primarily to save on the fuel and improve the fuel consumption under heavy load. My first video reviewing the JustAutos tune proved that both drivability and consumption were considerably improved without towing. But the real test was always going to be once this trailer was fully built and loaded. And I didn't really have the trailer or a Scangauge before the tune, so it means that this video is not going to be a back-to-back towing test, but with your help we can fill in these gaps. And to help everyone out, please share your own data in the comments below. Share your temperatures and fuel consumption so we can build a general database and get an idea of how this video fits in the bigger picture. With that out of the way, let's get stuck straight into those numbers. First up, let's cover fuel consumption. The first half of the trip was a 900 kilometer, 10-hour drive from Western Sydney to Springbok National Park for camp. It required 2 fuel stops. The first fill up was after 626.5 kilometers of driving. Fuel consumption, 16.72 litres per 100, which I was very surprised with. The next part of the drive to Queensland wasn't so easy with the heavy, slow climb up to camp at 585 meters elevation and then Brisbane City driving. The fuel consumption did go up to almost 18.6 litres per 100 on that second fill up. On the way back from Brisbane to Sydney, the fuel consumption was far more impressive, with the first half being 16.5 litres per 100, dropping to an incredible 15.1 litres per 100 kilometers as measured when I parked it in my driveway. Fuel economy wise, I was really blown away, as the last time I drove to Brisbane prior to my tune, I averaged around 14 liters per 100 kilometers, not towing, driving at 110 kilometers per hour with a swag on the roof. An average of 16 liters per 100 kilometers at 100 kilometers per hour for approximately 7,000 kilos of total weight, towing a dual axle box trailer with 33-inch tires is very impressive. If you break that down, it works out to be a staggering 3.43 liters per 1,500 kilograms of weight. To put that into perspective, a Toyota Yaris hybrid weighs less than 1,100 kilograms and uses around 4 liters per 100 kilometers at highway driving speeds. What makes this even more impressive is that my fuel consumption might actually get better in the near future. During this trip, I was driving very cautiously because I had a brake failure while I was in Brisbane. Since my last video, we identified that the rear brake calipers were installed incorrectly, and further to that, they were not releasing correctly at all. The rear brake pad on the driver's side completely wore out straight through to the metal. So I have been driving for the past 12 months with dragging brakes, which I can only assume would negatively impact the fuel consumption even before I had the Landcruiser tuned. Therefore, for fuel economy, the JustAutos tune is an absolute win and a no-brainer, especially with the current diesel prices. Next, let's talk about the temperatures: transmission, exhaust, and coolant. When you look at the Scangauge exhaust gas temperatures, there are 3 banks being displayed. Bank 1 is the sensor closest to the engine, and it is the most critical. Bank 2 is inside of the DPF, and Bank 3 is post-DPF. The main reading we want to keep an eye out on is Bank 1, which represents the exhaust gases exactly as they exit the engine. It is worth keeping in mind that high exhaust gas temperatures are not an indication of your engine overheating. Exhaust gases are hot, as you can imagine. As a matter of fact, exhaust gas temperatures are between 1,500 to 1,800 degrees Celsius inside of your combustion chamber during normal driving conditions anyways, but they can be used as an indicator of how much strain and pressure your engine is under. Therefore, they can also be a great indicator for you to avoid straining the cooling system. Also, so these numbers can make more sense to anyone who isn't familiar with exhaust gas temperatures, from my research and understanding, temperatures in normal towing conditions should be around 550 degrees Celsius or less. The maximum safe sustained temperature under heavy load should not exceed 650 degrees Celsius. The absolute peak temperature for short bursts should be no more than 720 degrees Celsius, and temperatures above 750 degrees Celsius are considered dangerous and can lead to engine damage if sustained. However, it's also important to understand that it is normal for exhaust gas temperatures to increase with RPM and load. Your cooling system is designed to manage this heat. Therefore, this is also why you should keep an eye out on your coolant and oil temperatures, because if they are also rising rapidly, it is an indication that the cooling system is being overwhelmed, and that is when you can really cook your engine and turbo. Without any further delay, my temperature results. Cruising at 100 kilometers an hour, my Bank 1 exhaust gas temperatures varied from 470 degrees to 550 degrees Celsius, depending on the road conditions and the wind conditions. The maximum exhaust gas temperature that I noticed was around 650 degrees Celsius for a very short period as I passed Pete's Ridge. This is where the highway sustains a 5-degree incline for over 3 kilometers, rising in elevation by over 250 meters. This was also the only part of my trip where the Landcruiser slowed down from 100 kilometers an hour to 85 kilometers an hour, and I had to change to third gear to sustain momentum going up the hill. For the entire trip, my coolant temperature was sitting steadily at around 88 degrees Celsius, and on that specific incline it did rise briefly to 93 degrees Celsius at 4,000 RPM, then rapidly going back down to normal. Transmission temperatures were incredibly stable at around 80 degrees Celsius for the entire trip, regardless of ambient temperatures or load. It's also worth mentioning that the transmission and coolant temperatures remained stable and steady regardless of whether I was using the JustAutos torque converter lockup or just leaving the Landcruiser in regular automatic. During my entire trip, and with the ambient temperatures well in excess of 35 degrees, the peak temperature recorded was only 94 degrees Celsius. Peak air intake temperature was only 100 degrees Celsius, and I didn't notice my intercooler temperatures exceeding 65 degrees Celsius, but they were mainly sitting at 50 degrees Celsius or lower. I do see people panicking on social media when their coolant temperatures get into the 90s, but to be honest, these temperatures do look pretty amazing for me. My Supra coolant temperatures used to sit at around 115 degrees Celsius at idle from factory and hovered over 120 degrees Celsius on the racetrack. The Landcruiser being in the 90s or even 100 degrees Celsius for coolant is completely within safety margins. John Cadigan from Auto Expert actually has a fantastic video explaining thermodynamics, which perfectly aligns with my views on this subject. You should check that out later on as well. Your engine is actually designed to run hot to be efficient. It is also worth noting that modern engines have a vast array of safety measures. These safety measures are going to prevent the engine from exceeding preset margins and are retained in the JustAutos engine tune. So you physically cannot overheat your engine into self-destruction unless you intentionally do something wrong. Finally, the drivability. How did it all feel to drive and tow? In one word, excellent. The Landcruiser accelerated strong and managed the 7-ton combined weight without any struggle at all. Other than that severe incline at Pete's Ridge, which had other four-wheel drives and vans, even if they were not towing, struggle to maintain speed, almost the entire trip was driven under 5th gear in cruise control in normal auto. I didn't see any need or requirement to turn on the power haul mode unless it was for use on those severe inclines. I chose to drive at 100 kilometers per hour to conserve fuel, but it had no problems at all towing at 110 kilometers an hour to overtake. Because I didn't tow with the Landcruiser before the tune, I actually have no benchmark to compare the improvements from factory when towing, so it's a little bit hard for me to give you a true before and after comparison. But again, with your help, we can possibly fill this gap in, so make sure you do share your data in the comments below. If you tow, or even if you don't tow, let me know what your exhaust gas temperatures and coolant temperatures are, as well as your fuel economy when you're towing and when you're not towing. I want to know if these figures that I'm achieving are normal, or if they're good, or if they're bad, and if my temperatures are too high. I want to know where it kind of fits in the picture. I'm also very curious to know if upgrading the exhaust will lower the exhaust gas temperatures, and if so, by how much. So if you are an exhaust manufacturer or a workshop looking for someone to work with, don't be shy to reach out to me. Finally, make sure you do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming dedicated review on the Scangauge 3 or other awesome videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.